Boom, boom. YouTube, what's up, man? I'm here today. It is November 12th, 2018. It's a dark day. We had a dark Sunday. The Philadelphia Eagles lost to the underdog Dallas Cowboys last night in pretty much a must-win game for both teams. You know, when the Eagles were coming off a bye, they acquired Golden Tate. The Cowboys played Monday night, so they had one less day of rest, and they came in last night, and from the beginning of the game, they wanted the game a little bit more. The Eagles really came out flat, and the Eagles have been a mediocre team this year. I mean, they have a lot of weapons. I feel like their weapons are more than good enough. I mean, as far as the wide receiver and Zach Ertz and the quarterback, but the biggest difference between the Super Bowl champion Eagles and the team that was blowing teams out in the regular season last year and this team is that they're just not blocking the same. You know, as much as we want to talk about quarterbacks and we want to talk about coaches and play calling and situational stuff, and I love talking about it because I'm a Madden player, at the end of the day, football comes down to blocking. And what the Eagles did better than any team last year, and the reason they were so successful is because they blocked so well and they got off of blocks so well. They won every game in the trenches. They were the best team both on the offensive line and the defensive line last year. And this year, that's simply not the case. They are beyond mediocre. They make mistakes in pass protection. They get beat in pass protection way more often than they did last year. And ultimately, that is the biggest difference between last year's team and this year's team right now. But it was so on and so forth. We go back to last night's game. And obviously, it's very disappointing playing. I also think the Cowboys are a bad football team. You know, not necessarily because of the lack of talent they have. Honestly, they have a lot of good young talent. They have a pretty good defensive line with Randy Gregory and DeMarcus Lawrence and Tyrone Crawford in the middle too. Those are three guys that gave the Eagles a lot of problems and give a lot of teams a lot of problems. The two young linebackers were balling. Byron Jones is balling in the corner spot. So they definitely have a lot of talent on the defensive side. They also have talent on the offensive side. You know, they have their offensive line's banged up pretty banged up. Even Zach Martin got hurt last night a little bit. But they have Zeke, who's, you know, top 5 running back in the NFL. He's a special player. They just grabbed Amari Cooper. But, I mean, they're lacking other than those guys. And Dak is very mediocre. But ultimately, I think what holds back the Cowboys is their coaching staff. And that's why I think they are a subpar, below-average team that the Eagles should never lose to at home, especially on a game of this magnitude last night. But ultimately, I think that it was the Eagles are really hurt defensively. They really are. You know, and that's something that came into play last night a little bit. They didn't have all the players that they wanted to in the defensive backfield. Jalen Mills, someone who I vocally am a huge fan of, was out last night. Ronald Darby got hurt last night. Sidney Jones has been out, it seems like, his whole career, honestly. So that's something that they were dealing with last night. But I mean, football is any given Sunday mentality. That's why football is so good. Any team can beat any team because they're all talented. It takes so much teamwork, you know. And the one thing about football, man, momentum is just a huge factor, man. The mental side of the game, giving teams that thought that they can win, that thought that they compete, you know, that extra motivation to get them going. And I think there was a sequence in this game that every Eagles fan was just aggravated with beyond anybody else or beyond what we could comprehend throughout the year. This was probably the worst game that Jim Schwartz has had as a defensive coordinator. And I'm never one to point at coaches because I feel like especially Schwartz, who doesn't do anything exotic, doesn't do anything. It's been like this since he's been here. You know, it's pretty damn basic. And they just allow their players to make plays, don't make mistakes. And the Eagles have been pretty good at that in his tenure. You know, they don't give up giant plays. They don't bust coverages. I mean, they're in cover 3. They're in single high safety every time, so their corners are one-on-one. So they are going to get beat no matter who the corner is out there. Unless you're talking Revis or you know, Deion Sanders, they're going to get beat by double moves because they're on an island, whether it's cover 3 or whether it's man. They're pretty much on an island so they're going to get beat by doubles. It's going to happen if there's no pressure and you know, they expect there to be pressure. So that happens to the Eagles defense, but I think they've been pretty good since Schwartz has been here, being basic, being under control. But there was a sequence last night that just was absolutely atrocious. Just also from the play calling side of it, and also from the from, you know, the execution of the play as well, man, because it really was probably the game-changing moment in the game. I know it got tied in the second half and so on and so forth, but I think this sequence is what gave the Cowboys, you know, that extra, you know, juice that they needed. You know, they already came out on fire. There were scraps before the game, but this sequence was really the one that pushed it over the edge for the Cowboys and really was just terrible. I mean, we talk about, I mean, on Twitter, I'm talking about, when I say we talk about on Twitter and throughout the Eagles fans community, is the 3rd and long defense that Jim Schwartz has adapted this year, which is pretty much, if it's 3rd and 15 or something like that, he's going to line every DB up at that 15-yard mark. And pretty much just any smart, you know, offensive player or offensive coach is going to dump the ball off, uses other wide receivers to block, and most teams are prepared for that type of defense now, so that's what they do. Now, if you're facing, you know, Tom Brady or Drew Brees or Aaron Rodgers, where you can kind of force them to do that and, you know, get off the field, I think that's a great defense. And I think it's worked. It has worked this year way more often than it has not worked. Pretty much, I can think of one time, I forget what game it was, late a couple weeks back, where they gave up a field goal. I might want to say the Tennessee game, where it was like 3rd and 18 from the 50-yard line. Tennessee got 16 yards to get back in field goal range. And that was one time, the one time before this game where I can remember where it did not work. But more often than not, this defense works where they line up everybody's 20 yards back, so they just rally up and tackle. You know, so, but like I said, when you're facing the Cowboys, who really don't have any huge weapons out there, the quarterback is really bad. You know, he's not going to go out there and just drop, you know, 7-step drop and just rifle a post route into tight cover. He's not going to do that. You know, so, and their coaches know that too. So they're not out there, if it's 3rd and 20, they're not calling 4 verticals or deep crossing routes where you have to, you know, force them to do a screen. So I think maybe when you're facing a lesser offense, maybe this, you know, sticks defense is not the best call. But there's certainly game situations where it's horrible and where, you know, you can almost guarantee or predict what the offense is going to do. And that's pretty much the situation that cost the Eagles so much this game. And I'm going to show you guys exactly the game situation. The Eagles didn't score any points in the first half. I personally think the Eagles have a decent offense because they have a good quarterback and they have good pass catchers. And their offensive line, although I said it has been bad, it's not horrible at all. You know, it's been pretty average this year. So I feel like with an average line, a good quarterback, and good receivers, you should have a good offense. And I think the Eagles were like, you know, it's time to get going. You have no points here. The end of the half, they drove down and got their field goal. Let's take a look at what the main sequence that really just drove me crazy, man. As a fan and a football game management expert, because I am a Madden expert, and that's pretty much the biggest comparison to real football and Madden is the game management and pretty much how we use that and how NFL coaches use that. And so here's the game. The Eagles have all 3 timeouts. The Cowboys have no timeouts. The game is 6-0. Both offenses have been dreadful. The Cowboys got their 3 points off a pick, and I forget how they got all the way down the field on the other one. It might have been a couple plays they strung together, but there's been no offense in this game. So right from there, you go as coaches, you know, there's no offense going on in this game at all. So what happens is the Eagles drive down, they get to a 4th and 10, and they actually bluffed on going for this, but this would have been from, what, the 46, probably about the 38-yard line or the 39-yard line is where they spotted. Yeah, it looked like it. And they almost bluffed going for this, but they decided to kick the field goal. Jake Elliott knocks it down, 6-3. You're feeling a lot better about a half where you did nothing on offense. You know, and it's like, let's get a little bit of momentum. It feels good. It's not going to be 6-0. It's because they could have went for that and not got it, and it would have been, you know, maybe 6-0 at half or maybe 9-0 at half. But to get that 3, it's like, all right, we're right back into it. So the Cowboys, they have no timeouts, and they have the below-average offense. And Ronald Darby gives up this little route right here. I believe that's Amari Cooper, 19. Okay, that's fine. So now they're going to hurry up. You know, we got a first down the first play out of the drive. We have no timeouts. You know, and like I said, we are a bad offensive team. The Eagles are playing bad offense, but they just got a little bit of momentum. So the Cowboys, after that, they no huddle, and the next play, Dak Prescott, for some reason, first down right now, he has to get rid of the ball, but what he does is not only takes a sack, instead of a 7-yard sack, he says, you know, I'm going to make it a 12-yard sack. So right there, after you make it from 1st and 10, it's going to be 2nd and 20 something. Absolutely, you have all 3 timeouts. Call a timeout because Doug Peterson knows. And Doug Peterson, honestly, I think is very good, if not the best coach in NFL as far as managing these 2 minutes, managing his timeouts very well, so he always gets the ball back and when he wants to get the ball back. And I was right on top of this. This is exactly what you would do in Madden. You wouldn't call a timeout after they got the first down on the first play, but if you sack him there to the point where they're not going to get a first down now, they're not going to get a first down. They're not even going to. He took such a bad sack that the Cowboys aren't even going to try to get a first down. After the sack, the Cowboys' mentality went from trying to get points to trying to get out of half at 6-3. They don't even want to they don't want another yard. All they want to do is get out of the half. That's it. So the Eagles called a timeout. The next play, the Cowboys run, so they get to a 3rd and 15. This is what you have here. Now, we go back to the game situation. I told you, after that sack, the Cowboys have no timeouts, a 3rd and 15, and they put this green stuff on the field, this green paint on the field to let you know how many yards. You don't even see the yard marker. That's how far away this is. So like I said, with a bad quarterback, a bad offense, 58 seconds, no timeouts, a 3rd and 15, all the Cowboys want to do is get out of the half. They would walk with this 6-3 and they'd be happy as pigs and shit with it 6-3. So you have to know that. As Jim Schwartz, you have to know this is 1,000% going to be a draw, a screen to Elliott, or a wide receiver screen. That's it. Now I will give. I mean, as much as I killed the Cowboys coaches, this is a cute little play because they have the 3 wide receivers over here. So naturally, you're going to be a little bit more eyes over here. And you're going to have your eyes on a running back, 1 for draw or 2 for screen. But to play this defense like you're afraid of the screen or the draw, it's just crazy because, one, you want to punt right here. You're going to get a punt. And if you make them punt from the 35, you're going to get the ball a lot better field position as if you let them catch the screen and run 15 or 10, 12 yards. Now that's 10, 12 yards less of field position you have for your, 40 seconds at no timeouts. So right here for mine, I'm just 2-man under. Not aggressive where you're blitzing and going crazy, but get these guys up here so they can't catch a little slant or catch a little drag and get 10 extra yards. Because those 10 extra yards are going to add to the punt that the Cowboys are perfectly fine with doing. They're going to punt the ball regardless of what happens here, as long as you tackle them inbounds or they get incomplete, whatever it may be. But the call is 1,000% a draw or a screen. It is. And what the Eagles do is, look, these guys, even the D linemen, there's not going to be a pass here. There's just not. So you're all super ramped up, ready to go. Dude, use your head for 30 seconds. Not just use your head at all. So what they do is they go this little play action, and the play action is actually great because if you see Nigel Bradham right here, the play action actually moves. He just attacks this thing like he's just ready to just take Ezekiel Elliott's head off. Like he's going to be the man to stop. And honestly, this is if all these guys were up here, because you see there's nobody even running out to block him right away. So if Rasul Douglas was down, not even right up against him, but 5 yards away instead of 15 yards away, he'll make a play. So you see Bradham's all the way up here trying to tackle the running back. So he's all the way out of the play. You got these 3 blockers running over here. Rasul Douglas still is not in the picture. There's not another DB. This is almost 20 yards now away from the wide receiver. So he runs down here. Now this is just execution. Where as much people hate Jalen Mills and they kill Jalen Mills, this is not happening with Jalen Mills in the game. And what it's not about him making the tackle. Obviously, Tyron Smith is probably the most athletic left tackle in the game. And this is Rasul Douglas. And when you see this, it's like he has no shot. And as much as we talk about the safeties in Madden blocking, getting off blocks and stuff, Rasul Douglas has no shot right here. But the one thing he can do is make this wide receiver go to the right of Tyron Smith. Don't let him get outside because see this Malcolm Jenkins, Jordan Hicks, the other guys, they're coming from this way. So you're going to have help to the inside. And what he does is he takes this on to the inside of Tyron Smith, and this just makes this incredibly easy for him to get outside. If he goes to the outside, because he still takes on Tyron Smith, he still fight. I mean, this is God bless Rasul Douglas for this because Tyron Smith, like I talked about, he's a monster. He takes him on right, and he tries to go inside. If he does this same thing outside, Malcolm makes this tackle around here, around the 45-yard line, and they still punt. So that as much as the defense I thought was horrible, if Rasul Douglas just doesn't make the tackle, just picks the right side of Tyron Smith, it changes the whole thing. But anyway, it allows him to get outside. Boom, first down, 20 yards on a play where they were conceding a punt. And after that, pretty much, Dak Prescott actually has some of the more impressive plays of the day. Here he goes and throws a dot over to Cole Beasley. Just beautiful pass on tight coverage. Then this was probably his best throw of the night. Just no hesitation, right into it. Vroom, laser right down there to the goal line. They hurry up with no timeouts and actually sneak it in the end zone. And they went from screen pass to a concession call from the Cowboys coaching staff to a 10-point lead at halftime. And honestly, I think that's where, I don't want to say that's where the Eagles lost the game, but that's certainly where they gave the Cowboys the momentum where we can really come steal this game because, you know, it's 13-10 here, or 13-3 at halftime. I thought that was pretty much the biggest sequence of the game to really hurt the Eagles' chances of winning and really instill that momentum in the Cowboys and really get them going for the rest of the game. I mean, so they lost the game last night. I'm not going to say all because of that, but it certainly really hampered their chances if they went at halftime 6-3, or even if they forced that punt. Who knows what happens? They get another field goal, 6-6 at halftime. But I thought that was poorly called and poorly executed by the corner out there, Russell Douglas, Nigel Bradham. Pretty much everybody on defense could have did a better job on that play. And, I mean, a lot of injuries in the secondary, but that's just basic fundamentals what happened. And it was a bad call by the coaching staff. They got to have a better feel for the game, really, in that situation, I think. And it led to the Cowboys' offense really just putting things together in the second half. They ran the ball, they passed the ball. They really killed the Eagles' defense, and Carson did what he could, and they got momentum too in the second half and were able to score some points. I'm not going to talk about too many of the offensive plays. I've never been a really bad, that's a bad play call person unless it's blatantly obvious, and I don't think anything was really blatantly obvious last night. And it's just, I mean, like I said, the Eagles aren't blocking as well as they did last year, and honestly, I'm really starting to feel like they really are missing LeGarrette Blount and Jay Ajayi right now. I talk about it, I feel a running back is the most, pointless, but not pointless, but most replaceable position. And right now, I feel like if the Eagles I don't think they have an average back. I think their backs are all pretty below average. But if they had the guy like Blount or even Jay Ajayi like he was early in the year, somebody to break a couple tackles, because the Eagles have guys that can run, that can secure the ball, but they really don't have a guy that's breaking tackles like Jay Ajayi or LeGarrette Blount. And you can tell they really miss it right now. So they're 4-5. It's looking like they're cooked because they have a tough schedule. They have all division games, and then they have at Saints, Texans, and at Rams. So that's 3 super tough games. If they're going to make the playoffs, they're going to have to pull off one of those games and sweep the rest of the division games. We'll see. I mean, I'll be rooting for it. I still feel like they can. I mean, it's just like the NFL. Any given Sunday, the Eagles can come out here and look like Drek against the Cowboys, but then next week go ahead and beat the Saints. But we'll see what happens. I'll certainly be rooting, man. I really hope you guys check out this video and enjoyed it. I love breaking down any football things that can relate to Madden, and I felt like that sequence really did. So make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and hit that notification button so you guys get the next video I do on some NFL stuff like this.